Hello, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Stack Bitcoin Show, your beginner-friendly guide to saving in Bitcoin. It's a little dark in here. Jeez, I forgot to check my lighting. But I'll adjust it as we go through the show. This is a very important episode. It's wild. It's wild. Okay, let's do the first two segments, and then we'll jump into. Actually, we'll do this video. I want to show you guys. We'll do that video during the Why We Stack segment, which is the most appropriate segment for that. Okay, so let's kick the show off. If you're in here for the first time, hit subscribe so you can comment in the live stream. And if you're a long time watcher, thanks for hitting the like button on the way in. Damon in the house. What up, Damon? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in and catching the live one. This is a good one. All right, so let's kick things off with some of the stuff we'd like to do here on the show at the beginning of the show, and that is the Bitcoin strength. Let's do that real quick. The Bitcoin strength. I don't even think I'm ready for that too. Sheesh. Today the price of Bitcoin it's up a little bit. It's up to $85,425.56. You can buy 1,170 Satoshis for a single dollar. What is a Satoshi? A Satoshi is a fraction of a Bitcoin, just like a dollar is made up of 100 cents. A Bitcoin is made up of 100 million Satoshis. So when you see the price of $85,000, don't be intimidated by it. You don't have to save up $85,000 to go buy a Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin in fractions. Those fractions are called Satoshis, and each Bitcoin is made up of 100 million Satoshis. Okay. So that said, you don't save up to buy Bitcoin. You save in Bitcoin, and more importantly, this is what we've been covering the whole lifespan of this show, which is about 22 months now, right? We're saving in Bitcoin because it's the currency that cannot be inflated, and if it cannot be inflated, they can't steal your value from you. Okay, so we know that the money system in the world, our fiat system, continues to expand, and as that money expands, whatever savings you have in that same currency also lose purchasing power, because if you make more bills, it still represents the same amount of value. Just like if you have a pizza and you cut it into more slices, you don't make more pizza. You just make more pizza slices that are smaller, that are less appetite satiating, right? So same thing with the money. If you make more money, you don't create more value, because the money represents the value, right? The pizza represents the amount of hunger you can quench, or you can satiate by eating the pizza, right? And by slicing the pizza up into more slices, you don't create more hunger satiating power. You just create more slices. So each slice now represents a smaller portion of that satiating power. So same thing with money. As the money supply expands, you don't make more money. You make more units that represent the same amount of value, which means each individual unit represents less value, less purchasing power. That's why the prices appear to go up. Well, that's why the prices go up in terms of dollars. That's why your house that you bought for $400,000 is now worth $1.2 million, even though the house is older than when you bought it, and it's more beat up, right? And you haven't done anything too crazy to make the value go up even higher, right? So that's part of the problem here, right? Is that the process called inflation, by the expansion of the money supply for different reasons, right? The purchasing power of your savings that's denominated in the same currency in dollars will go down. So you're saving, thinking you're gonna have enough in the future, but you won't, because by the time you get to that future, the purchasing power of your savings is not enough to just maintain your regular lifestyle, or for as many years as you thought you would be in retirement for, right? So you could end up having to go back to work, or even worse, end up like living in a car or outside on the street, right? It's crazy, but it's happening every day. Okay. Anyway, part of the whole point of this show is to get you guys to kind of just start to look into Bitcoin and start to understand it. But in order to have that real push to understand what Bitcoin does for you, you do have to understand the problem. Okay. And that's a little quick brief on what the problem is. Let's get into why we stack, right? And I'll do a quick why we stack, and then we're gonna watch this video. Then I'm gonna do like a live commentary on the video. I'll pause it multiple times to give you my two sats, and tell you what the solution is, because the video doesn't tell you the solution, but I'm gonna tell you what the solution is, and you guys probably already know what it is if you've been here before. If you're new, stay tuned. This is important, and if you want to share this with a friend, share this with everybody. Share this with everybody you don't want to be left behind and lose their savings. This is crazy. Okay. Anyway, so let's get started. Let's jump into the next the next section, which is called Why We Stack. Here we go. Why we stack. As mentioned previously, we stack because we know that saving in Bitcoin preserves the value of your savings against the dollar or against any other government money that can be inflated away. Okay, when the money supply increases, the purchasing power of those individual units of that money goes down. Okay, when you take that value, when you first get it and put it into Bitcoin, that value is now separate and away and isolated from that inflation process. Okay, and what ends up happening is that inflation process actually ends up working for you now. Okay, the value of your savings will continue to appreciate over time. The purchasing power of your savings will increase over time the longer you hold it in Bitcoin, just by the sheer fact that the dollar is being inflated away so rapidly. Okay, we can go to the national debt calculator, right? U.S. debt calculator, and show you that in the span of like 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, like every 2 or 3 seconds, we're getting $100,000 in debt. We're getting $100,000 in more debt every 2 seconds or so, right? So $50,000 in debt every second. Can you work faster than that? Can you create enough value in society to, or as a business, to beat that rate of inflation? If you cannot, then you are gonna fall behind no matter how hard you work, how many jobs you have, and how prosperous your business is, how many units. If your business is growing at a rate of like 10-15% year over year, then yeah, you're gonna be okay, right? But if you're not growing, if you're not getting a raise in your job at more than at least 8 or 9% per year, then you're falling behind. You're getting poorer. Your purchasing power is going down, and your income is going down relative to the speed at which inflation is happening, right? Factor in the tariffs that are happening and stuff, right? And factor in what we're going to talk about next, which is crazy. Okay, but before we talk about this thing that we're going to watch this video next, let me preempt it by highlighting and reminding you, if you haven't seen this movie already, it's called I know, and I'm jumping back and forth because this is all correlated. It's all part of a big thing. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but whatever. Anyway, do you remember? Have you seen the movie called the Big Short, where they go through and explain exactly how the Great Financial Crisis happened? If you don't know what the Great Financial Crisis happened, or if you're too young, the Great Financial Crisis happened in 2008 when the housing market basically crashed. Okay, it crashed because banks were so greedy to get people into loans and on houses that they probably shouldn't be able to afford, right? That they were doing things like things called ninja loans, no job, no income, no job verification, right? So they would just give somebody, say on your word, that said, hey, I want to buy this house, and do you have a job? It's like, yeah. Do you have income? Yeah. Can you make the payments? Sure. And I'd be like, okay, that's good. Sold. You get yourself a loan for a house, and they get themselves a loan for a house, and say, you know what? On top of that, we're gonna make this loan a variable rate loan, which means you don't have to pay on it. You'll pay a minimum amount. You'll pay a small amount. Your payment will be pretty small for the first couple of years, and after that, you'll refinance it and get a better loan because the interest rate should go down. Blah blah blah, right? And so people got suckered into buying houses they couldn't afford, and some people didn't get suckered into. Some people actually bought houses they couldn't afford, just thinking that it was an opportunity that they would be able to make income in the future. Anyway, so a lot of this was happening. It was like a frenzy, and so you basically had a point where the banks were issuing credit and loans to people that shouldn't be having those loans, right? And then they were taking those loans and repackaging them as assets and different things to sell off to like retirement funds and pension plans, right? And the stock market, right? And so basically creating bad loans with a high rate, with the high probability of default, and then pushing that risk off by selling it off into other asset classes by masking it, basically, right, with different packaging types. You'll get this whole process, this whole like explanation of how it was done. If you watch a movie called The Big Short, you got to watch the movie called The Big Short because it's happening again. It's happening again, but on a more massive scale, which is insane. Okay, so remember in 2008, what happened in 2008, 2009, guys? That's when Bitcoin came about, right? Bitcoin came about because in 2009 or 2008, 2009, they did the first quantitative easing, right? Which was after the Great Financial Collapse. All the housing markets were down. The banks are going to fail. They're too big to fail. So they had to like print a bunch of money. The government had to print a bunch of money, right? This is it right here, guys. This is the right here, 2008. This is the first time that we bailed the banks, right? And there it is. It just this is the money supply, right? The money supply more than doubled, right? From then till now. And in that doubling of the money, what happens, right? What we talk about here every day. Every day. If there's $100 in existence in the world and you're holding $10, you have 10% of the wealth of the world, right? Okay? If I go and increase the money supply to $200 and I don't give you anything extra to compensate for your losses, then I've debased you, and now you're only holding 5% of the whole monetary system. So now I've taken 50% of your wealth, right? Just like that, just by increasing the money supply. And it doesn't matter that in my bank account it still says $10, right? $10 is a part of what? $10 is a ratio of what? So you can say, yeah, I have my retirement plan and I have my savings. I have $1 million in savings, right? Well, if you had $1 million in savings, right, and the money supply doubled, then now you only have $500,000 in purchasing power, right, compared to your original money supply. Okay, so it's crazy. Okay, so that bailout, right, is what triggered the expansion of the money supply to go even more. Because I mean, the money supply was expanding gradually, right? But then after that, the great financial collapse, when they did all the bailouts for the banks, it just exploded, right? And then here, let me move my face so you can see that piece. And then here, this is when that virus hit, that where like you had to stay home, right? And what happened? Everybody got stimulus checks, and they expanded the money supply even more. People got money for nothing, right? And that expanded the money supply. But people that were in savings, people that were in cash, lost there too, because the money supply expanded even more, right? And now we're here. There's been some pretty restrictive. The increased interest rate. There's been some restriction on the rate of which money can grow. What up, J-Dub in the house? What up, dude? Good to see you in here. Right? There's been a little bit of a stall, but now we're back on the way up, trying to get that money supply expanding, right? So as that money supply expands, the purchasing power of your money drops. Okay, but if you have that value and you buy Bitcoin with it instead, then the purchasing power of your Bitcoin actually will increase, because it's going to cost you more of the cheaper, less powerful dollars to buy the same amount of Bitcoin. Okay, so stick with that in mind. Okay, we did the review. We got the financial collapse in mind, and we got the review of what happens when the money printing happens, right? And what causes money printing? What forces the government to do even more money printing? The bailouts. The bailouts of, first, for example, the housing crisis in 2008, right? And the bailout of the stimmy checks we got during the pandemic, right? And now the bailouts that are coming, they're going to be even more intense than we've seen. Okay, so let's watch this video. This video, it got put up by a woman named Tiffany Cianci. I'm gonna say Cianci or Kianchi, and it came across my TikTok feed, and it's crazy. You gotta watch it with me. We're gonna watch it together, and I'm gonna do some commentary. I'm gonna pause where I feel like pausing, and we're gonna watch it and see what happens. You guys are gonna be blown away by what she's saying, and in the space of Bitcoin, in the space of what we've been saying here on the show for such a long time, it makes sense to me, and it just like kind of like puts all the pieces together for me. It's insane. Anyway, here we go. Let's watch this video, or let's watch this video together. Let's see if I can get this going on the screen. Boom. All right, there it is. All right, and my comment was the level of money debasement is going to be insane. It's going to be a repeat times 10 of 2008, and savers will pay the price. This is what Bitcoin fixes. Okay, this is what. Anyway, let's watch the video. Here we go. Let me share the volumes up. Yep.
Last night, I started off by researching Hooters getting bankrupted by private equity and ended up uncovering the next 2008 level economic collapse. And they're hiding the bubble inside a private equity black box that makes it almost impossible to see what they're doing. Almost. This time, they're not going to collapse the banks and make it too big to fail. They're going to bankrupt the entire American pension system. I'm almost too afraid to make this video, but it has to be done, so let's get into it. In 2008, investors and bankers were able to crash the world's economy by engaging in risky, unethical bets and investments, and they did it right out in the open. They've learned, and this time they're doing it again. Bigger investments, bigger risks, same playbook, but they're doing it behind the smokescreen of private equity in bigger numbers. They're creating a bigger bubble than before, and it's not somewhere down the road. It's here, and it's about to pop.
Okay, real quick. You guys know what private equity is, right? Private equity is when you get a group of investors together and they buy it probably started like with buying like real estate properties, right? Like you get a group of people that can't afford to buy a whole complex on their own, right? And they get together, pull their money together, and create like a management company, and they buy, like, let's say, a whole neighborhood, and they're able to hike the rents a little bit, and everybody's profiting because through the group buy, they're able to control a big portion of the market and basically rent seek, right? Basically, get cash flow from those properties that they bought in a big group. So not only has this style of company bought like properties like homes and stuff, or like apartment complexes, but they've also bought different things like hospitals and stores and retail chains, right? Because again, it's a giant pool of money, and all they care about is being able to make money on what's existing there by going and purchasing it. Why create a business when you can just buy the business that's already running and successful, and then use that for the benefits of showing that you have positive cash flow coming into your management company, and then that gives you the ability to basically take loans against it, right? So let's just keep watching the video, and you guys can go on from there.
You see, for the last month, I've been trying to figure out why these companies that private equity had acquired were failing even though they were still succeeding. Joann's, 97% of their stores are still profitable. And yet they're still bankrupt. But they weren't bankrupt a year ago, and they still had the debt that private equity had stacked on them a year ago. So I wanted to know what changed. The same thing with Hooters. The same thing with... Now in 2024...
Okay, so just to make sure everybody's following along, private equity companies buy, like, for example, retail chain like Joann's, like she's saying, right? And they take that good I guess what you could say is positive cash flow, right? Or you could say they're a successful business, right? And since they can prove they have successful business, they pull loans against it, right? They pull loans against the value of the future value of the future earnings of that chain, right? And yeah, it's wild. Okay, but let's keep watching.
Private equity bankrupted 110 businesses, and that was almost double their previous record. There had been huge increases in the amount of bankruptcies each year over the past 3 years. But I didn't know what had changed because private equity had held many of these businesses for several years, and they were still succeeding. Until I got my hands on an economic report and an article and found a term that nobody could explain to me. The term was back-floating rate loans. I didn't know what that meant, and no article would explain it to me. So I had to go and do research in the financial prospectuses of a bunch of financial investment firms. Guys, in the last few years, private equity has taken out $3.8 trillion in adjustable rate loans. These are adjustable rate loans. These private equity firms took out adjustable rate loans. And so for the last 3 years, as our interest rates have gone up, every 30 to 60 days, the money due on the loans they stacked on top of these companies has gone up every 30 to 60 days. That's why these successful companies that private equity had acquired are suddenly bankrupt, even though they're still making money. They're bankrupt because they're paying adjustable rate loans. But it doesn't stop there. It gets so much.
Wait. I need you guys to hit me with a like, hit me with some comments in the chat, some reactions, some tapping of the screen. That's insane, guys. Like basically they took successful like brands basically or businesses, right? That are performing well on their own, but since they've saddled them with so much debt, with variable interest debt, actually, right? Which they have to refinance every 30 or 60 days, right? That now causes them to be in a hole because they were used to the 0% interest rate, right? And last year we were supposed to get, like, was it 7 interest rate drops, and we didn't get a 1, right? So, or maybe we got 1 towards the end of the year, I forget. But they've been kind of struggling to get by, right? Well, not struggling. You know what I mean? They've been basically they sold the future earnings of those chains or those whatever property they bought, whatever companies they bought, and to the point where they're basically insolvent, right? Even though they're great performing companies, like 93% profits, that's pretty amazing, right? But that's still not enough to compensate over how much leverage they've used for these companies. So it's crazy, okay? But it gets more crazy. It gets more crazy. Let's keep watching.
Much worse, because my next question is, why are the banks willing to give these risky loans to these private equity firms knowing it's going to cause them to fail? And the answer is because the banks aren't going to keep them on their books.
Boom, that sucks. In your face. See? Can't trust the banks. Can't trust the government with that money printer, guys. This is exactly what Bitcoin's supposed to fix, okay? Just keep watching. Just keep watching.
Banks are immediately repackaging these adjustable rate loans as something called CLOs, right? Which are then packaged and sold off to our pension funds as really great debt.
Okay. So do you guys remember the movie, like I said earlier, the Big Short? CLOs are arranged in different tranches, right? That's what the Ryan Gosling character, when he has a Jenga on the table and he's showing people what happens, how the economy is going to collapse because of these CLOs, right? That is exactly what they did in 2008 or 2007, whatever, right? When they were selling junk loans basically to anybody with a heartbeat, right? Only instead of being an individual now that's getting these loans, it's those investment groups, right? It's those investment companies, and so it's wild. It's wild. Let's keep it going. Oops! Oh, I gotta kick over here.
And they tell them that it's a diversified portfolio. Are you hearing The Big Short in real time?
There it is.
Literally, all of these companies are getting bankrupted in greater and greater numbers. And all of this debt is adjustable rate. And all of the bankruptcies are skyrocketing in this direction. And now, if you look at this graph, you can see that aside from 2020, which is obviously an anomaly, right now, private equity, that's the yellow section, has double the highest number of bankruptcies they'd ever had prior to last year. And that number is climbing this year, $3.8 trillion. $3.8 trillion in this debt, okay? I want you to look back to 2008. Do you want to know how many risky adjustable rate mortgages there were?
This is important right here.
$1.1 trillion.
Okay. So in 2008, 2009, when we had the great financial collapse or whatever, great financial crisis, it was let's just say $1.3 trillion of debt that basically couldn't get paid, right? There we are, 2008. Okay, so about 1 point something trillion in debt that was basically junk debt, right? That was gonna basically need to be bailed out. Okay, and that's where like the bailout came from, right? So now it's at a higher degree, and the unrealized. There it is. The unrealized the outstanding debt is over $3 trillion. Okay, listen. Oops.
Do you want to know how many subprime but not quite as bad loans there were? $1.3 trillion.
There you go, 1.3 trillion. There you go.
That was just in housing. In the $3.8 trillion held by private equity, they own the largest shares of the home ownership market in the United States. But they also own the daycares. They own the veterinary clinics. They own the pet stores. They own the nursing homes. They own the emergency rooms. They own the doctor's offices, the orthodontists. They own the builders. They own the HVAC companies. This isn't just housing. It's going to touch every single industry around us. And
okay. That is so important. It's crazy because if you thought like the GFC, the Great Financial Collapse, was a big deal, 2008, right? The very seed that inspired Satoshi Nakamoto to create Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is a product of somebody trying to come up with a solution for the money printing that the government would do to bail out the banks and leave the people out to hang us out to dry. Okay, so the whole point of Bitcoin, this is exactly the whole point of Bitcoin, right? And back in 2008, we didn't have Bitcoin. We didn't have the ability to get our value away from the system that's inflationary, that's going to destroy our savings, right? And the savers paid for it. Hey, the savers paid for it. But now if you're saving in Bitcoin, we have the solution. Now we have the resistant asset to that inflation that they're going to have to do in order to bail all these people, right? But you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, what? Well, yeah, right. We're not going to bail. We're not going to bail some private investment groups, blah, blah. We're not going to bail the banks again, blah, blah, blah. But keep watching. This is crazy. Here we go.
That is why, if this were a free market and private equity had not exploitatively gotten involved, if we had a free market and we could see what they were doing, these companies would be succeeding. If this were actually a free market, these companies would be succeeding.
Okay, do you get what she means there? She means these companies like Joanna went out of business at 93% profitable, right? It's a good business. It's a solid business with a good business plan, and they're making profits, and it's a healthy business, right? Well, if even that healthy business can't survive because of the predatory debt burden that they've had saddled on it, right? No company is gonna be able to do that, right? Like if you got that company so far into debt that now you can't even cover the cost of the interest, especially now that the interest rate is higher, right? Then you're basically condemning that company to go out of business, because it has to go out of business because it can't support it. It's not, even though it's a good performing business, it's still not performing well enough to compensate for the over leveraging that was done by the private investment companies, right? So what happens now? We don't have Joann's anymore, right? What happens? Hooters goes out of business. We can't go to Hooters anymore, right? But those are things that maybe if you're not into Hooters or you're not into knitting at Joann's, you might be able to live without, right? But can you live without an emergency room, right? If you're a pet owner, can you live without veterinary services? If you have a home and it's got air conditioning and heater, HVAC, right? HVAC, all these companies, all these things that used to be like more scattered around, run by different groups of people. Like you can get HVAC, which is like you get HVAC service from somebody that was like your local guy that does that, right? Or like a mom and pop shop, right? Well, all those mom and pop shops can't compete with the conglomerates that come into a part of the country and buy up all the businesses that have that service. For example, let's just say plumbing, for example, right? You can have a bunch of plumbers that are like in town that are different companies, right? But they won't be able to compete with a bigger plumbing company that's owned by a private equity group that can afford to charge their customers less long enough for you to go out of business and make it to where you're not profitable, so that they can then come and take your customers and buy your business off of you at a cheap price because it's not profitable anymore. And then once they have basically the market cornered, they can start raising the price on the people, right? So if that wasn't bad enough, on top of that, right? Though they took the value that those companies conglomerated together represent, and they took massive crazy loans against it to where now they're gonna run them into the ground and basically go out of business. So now I guess it's like I guess what'll happen is you won't have a plumber in your neighborhood for a while until somebody, I guess, decides to start their own mom and pop shop again, which I guess might be good in that way. But it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Let's keep watching. More stuff, more crazy stuff. It's just wild. Let's keep going.
Joann's has 97% of their stores profitable.
There you go.
That is an astronomical number. 97% of a retail store is profitable, and they are failing, and they are closing every store, and it is further consolidating an already consolidated environment. And now there are thousands and thousands of employees that will not have jobs, and there are thousands of other businesses that are going through the exact same thing right now.
Okay, wild. It's wild. I'll make sure I put this in the chat right now, guys. Where's this? I'll copy link. Here it is. I'll put this in our chat, guys. It's also in the description of this video if you guys want to check out the whole video on yourself by yourself at your own leisure, and share it with your friends. If you want to share this video with my little commentary that's giving you the perspective as far as Bitcoin is concerned, or you want to just watch the video on its own and do your own analysis for your friends and family, please do share this video. It's just incredible. We'll keep going.
Why? Because they know we will never allow the banks to be bailed out again.
So I'm going to back up a little bit so you guys can hear her whole sentence.
Literally,
There we go.
And why? Because they know we will never allow the banks to be bailed out again. We would literally riot in the streets. But we're definitely going to allow them to bail out the pensions because that's our grandparents. That's our parents. That's the working class.
I think we missed the part. Am I talking? Give me a second. I'll go back.
97% of their stores profitable. And they are failing and they are closing every store. And it is further consolidating an already consolidated environment. And now there are thousands and thousands of employees that will not have jobs. And there are thousands of other businesses that are going through the exact same thing right now. And why? Because they know we will never allow the banks to be bailed out again. We would literally riot in the streets. But we're definitely going to allow them to bail out the pensions because that's our grandparents. That's our parents. That's the working class. They know that this will get bailed out. And because there's no regulatory authority, there are no laws stopping private equity from doing whatever they want, they know they can get away with it. And we can't do anything to stop them.
That's wild. That's a little bit of a freeze in the video here. I'm going to fast forward a couple. That is...
thing you need to...
Okay. Here we go. Yeah, it's... So how do we get... If you're missing the part where we get from those toxic loans, right? To where those end up in your pension plan, it's through CLOs, right? We covered that. So pension plans go and invest in these assets that are projected to have good returns with a little bit of a higher risk but they have a really high return. So anyway, she's gonna explain a little bit more of that too, which is nuts because it shows you exactly how it's set up for the people, the savers, to take the fall again this time around, but in a different way, right? But still, the product of this, the whole point of all of this trickery of moving the shell game and moving around all this debt is that the American people end up getting saddled with this bailout again. Let's keep watching.
The most important thing you need to understand is this wasn't done by accident. This was done by blatant, intentional greed. The private equity firms wanted the cheapest debt they could get, and they believed arrogantly that the debt would stay cheap forever. They had 0% interest rate loans for ages. And so they took on these adjustable rate notes thinking they could keep refinancing forever out of it. It was arrogant. But it also meant that they got to collect bigger fees because they were taking risky debt that cost less. The bankers were happy to give them because they got higher fees on offering bad debt. They were going to get paid no matter what. At the same time, the private equity firms mandated in their contracts with these companies they acquired that they were advisors and that they were a management company. So they also get paid that way. And then they sold the land out from under these companies and all their assets and made themselves whole before any of this even began. They're already cash positive.
That is straight up evil. That's straight up maniacal, dude. Can you believe that? That's insane. So straight up, not only did they saddle these companies with all the debt they could probably get them on, right? On a variable interest to boot, they also sold off the assets, like the land. That's just... I'm laughing because it's the level of greed, the level of just wow. Who? Anyway, let's keep watching. Wow.
The banks knew they wouldn't be held accountable because they were going to bundle it up and pass it off to the pensions. And even the pensions were reckless because they're buying these mechanisms because when you purchase into private equity, when you purchase private equity debt as a pension, you get to put on your books, especially if you have an underfunded pension, the projected gains for 10 years, which means for 10 years, it looks like that pension is more shored up than it is. And at the end of that 10 years, when it's time for that fund to close out, suddenly then all of the bad debt comes crashing down on the pension. But at that point, there's a new leader on the pension fund and they've kicked the can down the road. So even they were reckless. But at the bottom of all...
Jeez, that's so insane. I'm going to stop interrupting.
All of this is the bankrupting of the fabric of our society. We are losing our businesses. We are losing our doctors. We are losing our orthodontists. We are losing our nursing homes. We are losing our funeral homes. And one by one, they're going to fall under the weight of this really horrible adjustable rate debt. And nobody is talking about it. I could only find 2 articles in very obscure financial magazines that even talk about these back floating rate loans. I have never been more terrified. And I talk about private equity a lot. I have a lot to say. But right now, all I want to do is get someone to pay attention that can make a difference in this, because we have a problem. We're not with
Crazy. So, there it is. That's just straight up mind-blowing, and it is super scary. And you might be thinking to yourself, holy smokes, if any of that is, I mean, if that's, to me, that it all makes sense what you're saying, right? You've seen that movie, The Big Short, right? It's just The Big Short 2.0, right? But bigger and better, times 10, right? And in the end, when people are losing their pension again and all of that, the government's going to be forced to once again spool up that money printer and print, because otherwise people are going to lose their life savings, literally, right? So what can we do? It's simple. The same thing we've been doing here for the past 2 years, about 2 years. And you could have started 2 years ago. You could have started 4 years ago. You could have started in 2009 when Bitcoin first came out. Hey, you weren't around that. You weren't around then. You didn't understand the concept. You didn't understand the problem. Well, you understand the problem now, right? What if before 2008 happened, the big great financial collapse, before 2009, you had a way to preserve the value of your savings, to preserve the value of your retirement money outside of the money system that's set up to keep you poor, and it's about to jack you for 50% of your purchasing power on your savings, right? I mean, maybe even more. Probably more since then now, right? If you had the option, if you knew, if we had Bitcoin back in 2008, you would have been okay, right? Because the value of your savings would have retained, and since the money supply was increasing, the value of your savings, the purchasing power of your savings would have increased at better than the inflation rate. Okay, so what can you do now? Knowing what's coming, right? Knowing what's coming, what can you do now? Start saving in Bitcoin. Super easy. Okay, it's super easy. I don't like to present this kind of information unless I have a solution for this, right? And or this is the inspiration for what created Bitcoin. Remember, like Chancellor on the brink of bailing out banks for the second time, right? This is it. This is what Bitcoin's made for. Okay, Bitcoin was born for the separation of the money from the state, so that you can preserve the value of your work through times like this, when the greed gets out of control and the government's in cahoots with them and they're printing money out of control and they're debasing your savings. If your savings are in Bitcoin, it won't matter if they print the money. If anything, the money printing makes you more wealthy, right? Because up until Bitcoin was around, only the super wealthy were able to afford to get into the asset classes that will increase your purchasing power against inflation, right? And now we have Bitcoin with such a low barrier to entry. You could buy 1,166 Satoshis today for a single dollar. Nuts. It's nuts. Anyway, let's keep the show rocking. Let's finish off the show with today's stack recap. Stack recap, because we don't only talk about stacking Bitcoin, saving in Bitcoin. We do it here every Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for joining us today. Let's do some shout outs. Rounds of applause from the live studio audience for Damon Murphy in the house. Cheer. What up, Damon? Also, shout out to J-Dub, Carlos Aramillo, DCA to BTC. Also, ABW, good to see you in here. And Carl Black. What up, Carl? Let's go, Carl. All right. So today, let's check out our stack. Let's check out our stack for 2025 so far, because we only track the buys for 2025 this year, to show you guys what it's like to stack from scratch, to stack from zero every year. Here it is. We started saving Bitcoin on January 1st, 2025 this year. We've set aside about $2,140 worth of value. And that value in terms of dollars today is currently worth about, sorry guys. There it is. It's currently worth about $1,977 for an unrealized loss of about 7.57%. That's in 2025 when we're zoomed in to about three months worth of savings, okay? Today, the price of Bitcoin is $85,740. Our average buy price in 2025 is $94,000. That means that today we're going to be doing a double stack. We're going to be buying $40 worth of Bitcoin here shortly, coming up next. But let's go and recap the savings for 2024. In 2024, we started a whole nother sheet just like this one, where we only track the purchases we've made in 2024. We started, again, January 1st, 2024, and we saved about $7,345. Today, the Bitcoin that we accrued during that last year of 0.122422217 Bitcoin, at today's price, is currently worth about $10,496 for a gain, an unrealized gain of about 42%. Unrealized because we don't plan on selling this, because why will we sell the pristine Bitcoin that doesn't inflate for paper money that melts away via inflation? All right. Also, we've been tracking the whole Bitcoin bag for the Stack Bitcoin show since the beginning of the first episode, which is May 22nd, 2023, when we purchased our first $5 stack of Bitcoin and got us 18,000 Satoshis, 0.00018 Bitcoin. Those first $5 that we purchased back in the day, almost 2 years ago, is currently worth about $15.43. Our overall dollar cost averaging amount that we've done for the show is $12,969. And we accumulated about 0.25 Bitcoin, a quarter of a Bitcoin since then. And if we were to go and try to go buy the same amount of Bitcoin today, a quarter of a Bitcoin, it would cost us $21,665. In other words, it would cost us 67% more of today's weaker dollars to buy the same amount of Bitcoin. Okay, through other forms and saving techniques and saving strategies, we're able to accumulate additional Bitcoin here for the show, and our overall holding for the show has now become 0.3470251 Bitcoin. That is the stack recap. That is the Bitcoin that we're holding for the show as a demo, as a inspiration for those of you that are new to Bitcoin to try to get started. Okay, because when this great financial crash or great financial collapse 2.0 comes through, when the everything bubble crashes, bursts, you're gonna feel bad knowing that you didn't save enough in Bitcoin because you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. Okay, there's the warning lights are on. Okay, and the solution is before you. Okay, in 2008 we didn't have that opportunity. Bitcoin didn't exist. We couldn't get into a different asset class. Maybe we couldn't get into an asset class that would preserve our wealth. Right, when the great financial collapse happened, there's nothing really most people could have done. Right, now there is. Now we have Bitcoin. Okay, it's a solution to that very problem. It's like a puzzle piece. This is exactly what you should be doing. All right. Anyway, that's not financial advice. You should do your own research, but I mean, find the evidence. Okay. And if you want to challenge that, challenge it in the comments. Challenge it in the live stream. Come in here. I'm here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm here asking your questions. If you don't want to challenge it and you just need help getting started with Bitcoin, I'm here for that too. Okay. I'll tell you how to get started, where to buy Bitcoin, how to hold that Bitcoin because you don't want to leave it on the exchange. We buy Bitcoin, we take custody of that Bitcoin, and we continue with our lives. We continue to do things to generate value in society, and then we exchange that value that we earn into more Satoshis and more Bitcoin that will get us closer and closer to our freedom date, where we will be able to retire off of our Bitcoin stack and do whatever it is you want to do in life without having the necessity to work. Get your time back. Saving Bitcoin, get your time back. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to where we were. Where was I here? Okay. So that said, that's a stack recap. We know that the price of Bitcoin is below our average buy price for 2025. So we're doing a double stack today of $40. Now that we know how much Bitcoin we're going to buy, there's only one thing left to do. It's time to stack some Bitcoin. It's this easy. I do this every weekday on the show to show you how easy it is. Right? I can run a full show, conduct the band. Hit me with a drum roll, right? I conduct the band. I can deal with the audience. What's up, audience? Round of applause from the live studio audience. And I can get on my Strike app, right? Hit the buy button. Key in $40. Okay. Cut the music. Drum roll, please. And buy $40 worth of Bitcoin right now live during the show. Oops. Confirm. There it is. Confirm. Buy Bitcoin live during the show. It's that easy. I can run a full show that's somewhat entertaining and still be able to buy Bitcoin live during the stream. So if I can do it with all these distractions, all this stuff happening, you can do it too. It's that easy. And on top of that, not only can you do it manually, but if you set it and forget it, you can set the app to buy it for you every frequency, every day, every week, every month, every hour, whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay. I'm not saying buy all the Bitcoin. You buy all the Bitcoin or put yourself into a financial situation that's stressful. Figure out how much you can invest, how much you can save, and be able to survive without for at least 4 years. And that's the amount of Bitcoin you should be saving, right? At a minimum, right? Like some people say only invest 1 or 2% of your portfolio into Bitcoin, right? I say only keep as much dirty fiat as you feel comfortable with getting debased on. Okay? But my level of understanding of Bitcoin is different than yours, right? Maybe you're too cautious about it. You don't understand it. The level of understanding of Bitcoin, what Bitcoin is and how the money system works, it's different for you. So invest where it correlates to your level of understanding, right? And maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm wrong, it's okay. I'm wrong. No big deal. I'm accepting the risks. I understand the risks, right? But you can't just make your investment decisions based off somebody on the internet, especially me or anybody else. You need to go and take the information that I'm giving you and cross-check it against other sources, right? Do you understand how the money works? Go understand how the money works, right? Do you understand how Bitcoin works? Go learn how Bitcoin works, right? It's always surprised me the level of research people do to manage a fantasy football team or a fantasy soccer team, a fantasy sports team. They go in there, they know all the stats for different players and what positions they play, what positions they could play, who if they get injured, who could replace them, what's the optimal way to set up your team, because it's different players, different teams, and what days they're playing, what the schedule is like, and if you have enough time to swap players before this or that, and to keeping up with the news of like player injuries and rosters and all that stuff, right? And they're spending like hours for a game that they maybe put in a couple bucks, $50, $20, $10 into whatever the pool they're playing with their friends or with buddies at work or wherever, and they spend all this time to to manage a fantasy sports team. And if you just took half of that time, not even half, if we just took a half an hour to an hour to get your basics down about Bitcoin, you'd be a lot better off than you'd be even winning your fantasy football league. All right. I know this is a longer one, guys, and I'm just feeling extra motivated today. That video like lit me on fire, and I wanted to share it with you guys. It's an important video to share. It's an important episode. This is one of my favorite episodes. It's a really important episode to share with your friends and family, because not only does this illustrate the actual problem, it gives you foresight into what's going to happen if all this stuff goes down, and on top of that, it gives us a solution. Okay? It's easy. Okay? It's all. This is a full package. This is the solution. Sorry, this is the problem explained. History repeats itself. And the solution is right there for you. Okay? All right, so I appreciate every single one of you guys for tuning in today. Let's wrap up the show. Let's wrap up this episode with the Going Out Jam. There it is, just like that. Damon, thanks for tuning in. Gracias por visitarnos. J-Dub in the house, thanks for tuning in, buddy. Carlos Jaramillo, DCA to BTC all day. What up, Andrew? Thanks for tuning in today as well. Carl Black in the house. Hard Huddle in the house. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode of the Stack Bitcoin Show. But until then, remember, especially now, if you ain't stacking, oh my gosh, you're not only slacking, damn, you're losing big time. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. Have a good night. Have a good day. Bye, guys. Cheers.